Before some women trust your strength, they test your boundaries. Not always consciously, not always maliciously, but often, before trust comes pressure. Because words can say anything. Interest can look real. Attraction can feel intense. But boundaries? Boundaries reveal what happens when comfort meets resistance. And that is where many men fail, before they even realize they were being evaluated. Most men think attraction is about impressing her, being funny, being available, being understanding, being patient. And while those things can matter, they mean very little if your standards disappear the moment pressure shows up. Because attraction may open the door, but boundaries often decide whether respect stays. This is what many men misunderstand. When a woman is deciding whether she can truly trust you, whether your confidence is real, whether your masculinity is stable, she may not only listen to what you say, she watches what you tolerate. She watches what happens when plans change last minute. She watches what happens when she's slightly disrespectful. She watches whether guilt controls you. She watches whether attraction makes you abandon yourself. Because boundaries are not just rules, they are evidence. Evidence that your words actually mean something. And when a man has no real boundaries, he often becomes emotionally negotiable. He says he values respect until he fears losing her. He says he has standards until attraction clouds his judgment. He says he knows his worth until she challenges it. And that inconsistency? People feel it immediately. Because confidence is not what you say when things are easy. Confidence is what remains true when saying no has consequences. This is why boundary testing can happen in subtle ways. Sometimes it looks like repeated lateness. Not once, not a real emergency, but patterns. Patterns that quietly ask, will you ignore what bothers you just to keep me? Sometimes it looks like small disrespect disguised as humour, little comments, tiny dismissals, pushes disguised as jokes. Not always to hurt you, sometimes to measure, does he laugh off what crosses the line? Or does he calmly correct it? Sometimes it's inconsistency, high interest, then sudden distance, warmth, then coldness. Not always manipulation, sometimes uncertainty, sometimes curiosity, sometimes conscious, sometimes not. But often, pressure reveals truth. Because when standards meet attraction, many people want to know which one wins. And for many men, the answer is painful. Attraction wins. So they over-explain. They tolerate more than they should. They excuse behavior they know bothers them. They betray themselves slowly, for the chance of being chosen. But here's the problem. The more you abandon your own boundaries to keep someone, the less trustworthy your strength appears. Because if your standards only exist when there's no risk, they are not standards. They are preferences. And preferences collapse under pressure. Real boundaries do not. Now let's be clear. Boundaries are not aggression. They are not domination. They are not controlling someone else. Weak men often confuse boundaries with force. Strong men understand boundaries are self-respect in action. A boundary simply says, I know what I accept and what I don't. Without panic, without anger, without emotional chaos. And that calmness matters. Because the real test is rarely the boundary itself. It's your emotional reaction while enforcing it. Can you stay calm when pressured? Can you stay grounded when challenged? Can you hold your standard without becoming reactive? Because anger often signals insecurity just as much as submission does. True strength is stable. A man who immediately explodes at every challenge often looks just as emotionally fragile as the man who accepts everything. But the man who calmly stands firm? That's different. That signals certainty. And certainty changes how people see you. Here's where many men destroy themselves. They fear boundaries will push her away. So they stay silent. They tolerate. They rationalize. Because losing attention feels worse than losing self-respect. But ironically, self-abandonment often creates the exact outcome they fear. Because when someone realizes you will constantly bend to avoid loss, your value changes. Not because kindness is weak, but because desperation often is. People trust strength more when it feels real, and strength without boundaries often feels performative. This is why respecting yourself matters so deeply. Not because every woman is testing you, and not because every challenge is strategic, but because life naturally applies pressure to everyone. Dating does, relationships do, people do, and pressure reveals structure. If your identity collapses every time someone attractive challenges your standards, then the real issue is not her behaviour, it's your foundation. This is why boundaries are not about punishment. They are filters. They quickly reveal who respects your standards and who only benefits from your lack of them. And this matters because many men waste months or years trying to decode someone's intentions, when clearer boundaries would have revealed everything faster. When your standards are unclear, confusion grows. When your standards are clear, patterns become obvious. The right people adjust, the wrong people resist, and both outcomes are useful, because boundaries do not just protect peace, they reveal compatibility. Now here's another truth many men need to hear. Passing a boundary test does not mean being cold. It does not mean becoming emotionally unavailable. It does not mean playing power games. Some men here hold boundaries and become rigid, defensive, or disconnected. That is not strength either. Real strength is warm but clear, respectful but firm, open but not easily manipulated. You can care deeply without abandoning yourself. You can be patient without tolerating repeated disrespect. You can be kind without becoming easy to exploit. And that balance is where trust often grows. Because trust is not built only through affection, it is also built through emotional safety. And emotional safety often comes from consistency. If she sees that your values stay stable, even when challenged, you become more predictable in the ways that matter. Not boring, not weak, reliable. And reliability creates safety. This is why boundaries are often misunderstood. Many think boundaries push people away, but healthy boundaries often do the opposite. They create clarity, and clarity reduces chaos. People may test limits consciously or unconsciously, but when they find someone whose standards are calm, clear, and consistent, it often answers deeper questions. Is this person emotionally stable? Can I trust what he says? Does his confidence disappear under pressure? And your behaviour answers, far louder than words. So if you want respect, stop focusing only on being chosen. Focus on being solid. Solid in your values, solid in your standards, solid in your ability to stay calm when pressured. Because trust without respect becomes fragile. Attraction without boundaries becomes unstable. And attention without standards becomes expensive. The goal is not to control anyone. The goal is to know yourself clearly enough that pressure does not erase you. Because before some people trust your strength, they may test your limits. Not always to destroy you, sometimes simply to understand you. And when that moment comes, the question is not whether pressure appears. The question is, do you abandon yourself? Or do you remain who you said you were? Because the man who holds his boundaries without fear, without anger, and without apology, becomes very difficult to manipulate. And the man who respects himself consistently teaches others to do the same.